Democratic strategist Jim Kessler is a former policy director for Senator Chuck Schumer, and Brad Blakeman, former deputy assistant to President George W. Bush. Thank you both for being here, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
When we kick off things, here comes January. There's a lot on the list just for January to avoid this government shutdown. One of the big things that's sort of at the center of all of this, there's the government shutdown, and the issue of immigration has blended right into this. Democrats say, we're not going to sign unless we get some help for the Dreamers, and the president also digging in, saying no DACA deal unless he gets what he wants as well. He's got a list: the wall, ending of chain migration. Pretty aggressive on both sides. So the big question is, who will actually bend? Brad?
Well, they're both going to have to bend because 2018 is going to have to be a year of compromise. Republicans need Democrats. The rules require it, especially in the Senate, to get legislation passed. But the good news is on the government shutdown, there's not going to be one. We're not going to start the year with a government shutdown. The bad news is we're just going to kick the can down the road again and meet up with this probably in the summer. But I think the aggressive nature of the Trump agenda is going to be infrastructure, where I think we can get a lot of Democratic support. DACA in solving once and for all this immigration problem of Dreamers. But there's enough compromise on both sides. Why? It's because Republicans and Democrats believe in strong borders. We also believe in a fair and equitable solution to DACA. So that's where compromise is a must.
Well, one hopes that each side would be able to find the middle ground. Jim, the Democrats, though, they're saying they're not going to sign on this bill to keep the government funded unless they get this fix related to the Dreamers. So if they dig in, will we see the government shutdown that is potentially there?
So there is a ticking timeline on DACA that is March, which is about the time when the government shutdown would occur too. And President Trump had promised that we're going to have a DACA solution by March. So these streams are coming together, naturally. Look, what the president has asked for in his latest tweet is 100% of what the president wants. And DACA is about 8% of the immigration problem. It's 800,000 of 10 million undocumented immigrants. So it's like, you can't say, look, I want LeBron James and I'm going to give you Lonzo Ball. Like Trump is going to have to move a little bit here because he's asking for everything and he's giving Democrats very, very little. I agree with Brad. This has to be the year of compromise. It has to be the year of bipartisanship because we don't have these situation where it's 50-vote majority in the Senate. Immigration is a place where this can get done. The president's got to move a little bit.
Interesting, you mentioned the year of compromise. Here we have the midterms looming, so we'll see what happens as they get closer and if compromise is potentially there. This upcoming weekend, the president expected to meet with Republican leadership to start talking about what their priorities will be, what they think they can actually accomplish. What do you think that agenda will actually look like? What do you think coming out of that meeting they'll be able to accomplish, Brad?
I think they're going to have a game plan, both in scheduling, when we can get this done before the Congress, because we're only talking about February, March, April, May, and June, because then both the House and the Senate are going to be up for re-election, a third of the Senate and every member of the House, and it's going to be every man and woman for themselves in trying to get re-elected. I would urge your viewers to pay close attention on January 30th to the President's State of the Union. That will be his roadmap. That'll be the agenda. That will be the challenge to Congress for the coming months, and I think it's going to be very aggressive.
Jim, shifting to you, when you talk about compromise, and this is the year that there has to be compromise, where will Democrats find it? And then will that be perceived as, because everyone wants the victory that they can crow about heading into the midterms when people head to the polls, who gets the win if you come to a compromise? That always seems to be the challenge in Washington. Nobody wants to give the other side a victory.
Right. Well, both sides have to get a win on this, and both sides have to get a loss on this. Look, the Republicans have a problem. They're going into the midterms. Their approval rating, wouldn't melt an ice cube. So they're looking at a bloodbath in 2018. And 2017 was a year in which Republicans really did not look to Democrats for help. They did everything on their own. There needs to be a change. The signal needs to come from President Trump, and it's got to be more than words. It's got to be deeds. He had the deal with Chuck and Nancy in September, and then he backed off. He really needs to reach out to Democrats. He needs to move to the center. They can do something on infrastructure. They can do something on spending. They can do something on immigration. It's not outside of his power, but he has to do it, and he's got to force Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan to move his caucus a little bit as well.
Jim, interesting you just mentioned a bloodbath. We have heard a lot of analysts talk about a potential blue wave, Brad, going into 2018. So does that make this year, before a potential blue wave, even more important for Republicans as far as what they can get done?
Absolutely. They need to run on their record. We control every facet of government, the White House and both houses of Congress. So it's incumbent upon us to have a record that we can run on. Now, history is against us in the midterms. Since the Civil War, we've lost, on average, 32 seats in the House and 2 in the Senate. So history is not with us, but math is. Democrats are defending a lot more races, both House and Senate, and putting more money and spreading their resources thin. So if we have a good record, I think we'll be rewarded by the electorate come November.
And Jim, the final word, are there any concerns Democrats could be seeing a lot of victories coming up, that they could be complacent going into this election year?
I don't think you'll see Democrats be complacent. And one of the things you saw both in the Virginia race in governors, where Democrats won the governorship, and in Alabama, where Doug Jones won, is in these blue and purple and red states, Democrats nominated moderates. And if they are nominating moderates in purple and red areas in congressional districts and in Senate seats, they could have a very, very successful election in 2018. You know, that is a broad path that they're taking. So I think Democrats feel optimistic about 2018. They ought to. That doesn't mean you can't get things done this legislative session.
Yeah, it's always interesting when elections feature the more fringe candidates, but we shall see who comes up to the plate in 2018. Jim Kessler, Brad Blakeman, thank you both for being here, and have a wonderful 2018.
You
too. Thank you.